All right, and we are live. So I guess what I can do, let me hop over to YouTube on my end. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to paste it inside the community so those folks can join us as well.
Yeah,
This is
that's
going to
fine.
be a replacement for my weekly Ask Junior segment that I started in there. So
Yeah.
all right, excellent. Well, whilst I do that, let's see where these folks are from. So if you guys are just tuning in, please post in the comments where you guys are from. Where you're tuning in from. Come in to say hello. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Okay, folks? Excelente.
We're just gonna wait a few minutes for everybody to show up. Let's see. Do we have anybody here? I wonder if I can see from my perspective oh, Salt Lake City. Nice.
Oh, there we go. I'm just posting here in the
Mizelle is from Louisiana, USA. Welcome.
good. I should post in the Facebook community as well, huh? Be a good
Yeah,
idea
that's a
to
good idea. We can get as many people involved as we can.
Yeah. Okay. Let me
All right,
see
Northern
here.
Light is from Sweden, like the name.
Ooh.
All right, we've got a few people from Sweden today. I love seeing where everybody's coming from. I love that we have such a vast community. All right, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay.
Very good. Is that Tony from
Yeah.
Atlanta?
Yep.
Nice.
You knew it.
Yeah. I'm not looking at the other screen, but
I really like
Tony's my
I
guy.
feel like I say this every time I hop on here, but I just love melted butter. That is just
Oh yeah. Yeah,
excellent
yeah,
name.
yeah. I love seeing these familiar names. The family's back. Excellent,
Yeah.
guys. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome.
All right. Oh, we've got some Jana from Germany. I'm just curious, melted butter. Where are you from? Can you let us know where you're from? I have to know.
From the fridge. That's where he's from.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right. Pardon my corny jokes. This is just what I do.
You got this, Junior. I think everybody appreciates your jokes.
Oh man, hold on. I'm trying to get into the Facebook. Sometimes it logs me out and I can't get back in. What is this? Save login. Yes, please. And then I'll post here. Come join Coach. Do we have any questions in the chat yet, Ariel?
We don't. We just have some people from all around the world, some hellos.
Good.
Tony says, Junior, my guy.
Yep, my guy. My guy. Any of you guys keeping up with the NBA conference finals? I'm rooting for Indiana. That's what I'm rooting for. SGA is good too, right? I think it's gonna be OKC versus Indiana for sure. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just ignore it. Okay.
And if you guys don't know what he's talking about, I'm with you. So it's fine.
You don't watch any sports, Ariel?
Not really. I've gotten into hockey before. I really like the vibe of hockey. They're just so like into it. I love going to games. And that's kind of how I am. I like going to games for pretty much any sport, but I don't really get too amused watching them.
Yeah. Is hockey just as violent in person as it is on video?
No, it's not. I'd say it's more exciting. I've actually never been to a game where it's been incredibly violent. Most of the games I've been to, people are just kind of yelling and, you know, really happy, going hardcore, high-fiving, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. One of these days I want to go to a playoffs game for NBA. The vibe is probably unmatched. Super hyped. So we got Joanna from Florida. I'm also from Florida, Joanna. Very good. Excellent. We got about 26 people here. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to hand the baton off to Ariel. She's going to be taking the lead on this one, and I'll just kind of be supplementing the conversation here. So if you guys have any questions, any topics that you want us to talk about, feel free to get started and post them. You guys want to see what I did in pottery the other day? We got to pick something and then paint it, and then they fired it up to make it look all cool. I got this Thriver juice. They give me a cool lid to it. You know, I specifically picked this one so it would fit in my cup holder on my desk. It still doesn't fit. I picked the smallest one too. Dang, that's wild. All
I
right.
like it. Yeah, we definitely have, let's see, we have a question up here from Medai. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Medai.
Madai.
Uh,
How about
Medai
here we go. I'll post it up here.
says, have you had any people recover who can do the program and work full time? And yes, we definitely have. That is something that is common, as people are able to work full time, still kind of interact with and be a part of the program. And we've definitely had people recover who were able to do that. So there is hope, you guys.
There is absolutely hope, and I fully agree as well. I've seen it as well. We have Jackie in the house, which means Boston is in the house as well. Excellent, excellent. All right. We got one from Michelle. How to calm the nervous system first thing in the morning. This is extremely common if you feel revved up in the morning, right? So, Ariel, I'll let you chime in on this because I know you have extensive experience with not so pleasant mornings.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to have that experience where I would wake up and just feel like I was a mixture of going 100 miles an hour inside, but going like none on the outside. And it just felt very uncomfortable. And what really helped me was that kind of idea of transition, right? So for me, I would find when I objectively looked at what do my mornings look like, oftentimes I would either kind of on both extremes, I'd either lay in bed for a long time until I felt like I have to get up and kind of just grit my teeth and let the symptoms come over me. Or I would just jump out of bed and get started with my day. And I had to find a balance. So for me, that transition of, okay, so I'm going to wake up, maybe I don't feel the best, but I'm just going to focus on transitioning into my day. I'm going to gently open my eyes, take a few deep breaths. And for me, it was important to kind of lean and then sit up before I stood up and started doing things. And over time, I did find that that transition from that kind of rest to activity helped me out so much. I also found that if I didn't just completely immerse myself into some type of like stimulation first thing, over time that helped too. I was a big distractor. I would wake up on my phone because
Mm,
I didn't want to think about the symptoms. And the
mm,
more that I actually took kind of what felt like a backwards approach, I was like, I'm going to kind of force myself a little bit to wait to get onto my phone, to give myself and my nervous system a moment to cool down and transition into being an awake human, right? That's kind of a lot. It can take a bit of energy to transition. So that's my experience with that. What are your thoughts, Junior?
I used to, I'm not proud to say this. I used to be one of those people before I got sick. I would wake up like 7, 8 in the morning. The moment my eyes would open, boom, I'm out of bed. I'm in the bathroom. I'm getting ready. You know, I'm getting changed. Sometimes the sun wouldn't even be up,
Yeah.
right? Um, my day would already be started. There was no time in between me waking up and actually like starting my day. I like to use the analogy, Ariel, if you drive a car, right?
Yeah.
They
Yep.
drive where you live. Okay. Some places they don't drive cars,
Yeah.
right?
It's
But
true.
you drive. Okay. So when you drive a car, when you start the ignition, goes shroom, you gotta sit there a little bit because the thing has to like calm down, right? You can't
Yeah.
just start it up and go. That's how you destroy a car, right? Um, these days, believe it or not, these modern cars, you actually don't need to do that. You can start it, you can go. Technology is so good these days, you can do that. But just a few years before, you had to start it up, you had to wait for it to rev down a little bit, right? Maybe about a minute or something like that. Get the car to warm up a little bit, and that was the missing piece for me is from starting the car to driving. In the middle, there is that point where the car has to wake up a little bit, take a little time, move a little slow. And that's, I think, the thing that changed for me these days is I find myself waking up. not immediately looking at my phone, giving my body a little bit of time to wake up. But there's two extremes to this equation. You could you could wake up, get out of bed way too fast, or you could also wake up, take too long to recharge, and stay in bed for way too long after you wake up too. Both of those things will end up making you feel very uncomfortable. I'll tell you like this. You wake up, you get up too fast, you're gonna be full of adrenaline, right? And that's gonna last probably all the way till lunchtime. If you wake up, have a real slow morning, and you stay in bed much, much longer than you probably should have, you're gonna have an extensively slow morning, and you're gonna have a really tough time ramping up into the afternoon. Um, you're gonna feel like you're walking in cement. What I found kind of the sweet spot for me, um, in the beginning of recovery, it took me, I'm not gonna lie, it took me like an hour and a half for my body to wake up, sometimes even more. I would stay in bed after I woke up maybe about 30, 40 minutes max, and then I would I don't like to say the word force, but I would healthily challenge myself to get
Encourage.
out of bed
Yeah.
and slowly get started with my day, get in the bathroom, get in the kitchen a little bit slower. Um, these days, I'll wake up, I'll kinda just stare at the ceiling for maybe 10 minutes, right? And then after that, I get up slowly and I start my morning, but I do it at a little bit of an even pace as well, right? That's what I notice is a trend in folks that I talk to, people who have a lot of adrenaline in the morning. You ask them how they lived their lives in the past, and it was a lot of waking up and doing things really fast in the morning. So now their brain kind of like is locked into that routine, but it's much more pronounced because their nervous systems are so much more sensitive these days. So I agree with you on that approach of like, wake up, take it easy, be gentle with it, right? But there's two sides of the coin to an extreme. You don't want to be too gentle, obviously, but you don't want to be too quick with it either. There's always you guys know me, I always answer things in the middle. So what do you think, Ariel?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, and I was thinking back and I remember I took it as an opportunity to form some, I don't wanna say rituals, but just some things that I like to do in the morning. Like I
Mhm,
would, because I was, for the most part, like you were talking about, Junior, is I would just get up and go and just run around like a chicken with my head cut off.
mhm,
Those were my mornings, So I actually remember I had this period of time in my recovery where I'd get up, I'd read a little daily reader, I'd take a little sip of tea after I got up and transition into my day, and that was really nice. I actually still um, do stuff like that sometimes in the morning. Not to the extent I did because I don't have as much, time to do those things, but it's still important to
mhm.
me to kind of set that intention and ground myself before I get going through the day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Got
Okay.
Crochet Nanny.
Okay. I like your name, Crochet Nanny. I'm liking these names today. It says, "How do you approach the grief that arrives with recovery taking very low and slow, being housebound for many months?" Yeah, that's a really good question, and I feel like we could talk about this as a topic for a long time, but, approaching the grief that arrives with recovery, taking low and slow, I think for me, I had to allow myself to have those feelings because what would happen to me is, especially when I was, housebound, not able to go and do anything, and I felt very trapped, I would get feelings and I'd feel very trapped with them. And I'd have to kind of acknowledge to myself, okay, I have this feeling of grief, disappointment, hurt, loss, whatever it is. And it's okay that I have this feeling, and then I would kind of remind myself in the same light, it's okay to have this feeling, but I can also in this moment remind myself that it's not going to be like this forever, that this isn't a constant state. This will change. So as far as that grief goes, for me, I had to let myself feel it, but I had to not sit in it. Right. So I had to say, I'm feeling that grief. It's okay that I feel this, but I'm going to bring this grief because oftentimes, I would have, let's say, in my recovery, if I had like 2% of grief, my nervous system would come in and stretch it to like 80. So any grief or kind of disgruntled feelings I had would be exaggerated by my nervous system. So I'd acknowledge those feelings, validate those feelings, and then say, yeah, but at least part of this is probably a symptom. So I'm going to acknowledge it. And then I'm going to bring this along with me to what I'm doing. And when it comes up, I'll stop, I'll acknowledge it, but I'm going to carry on and acknowledge it's okay to have that grief, And then at some point that's gonna, it's gonna go away because I'm gonna have a full life. I remember I used to do that. I used to think about, for me, I had a hard time thinking about goals and future visions, but I did used to think, don't know what it's gonna look like, but this will be different someday. But it's okay that I'm feeling this and processing this right now.
Mhm. I think that's so important too, to recognize how much more pronounced the emotional experience is because you're sensitive, you know? Um, for me, grief is always a 3.5 step process, right? Um, here's why I say 3.5, right? Because two of those things are kind of leaning into an acceptance. One of those things is leaning into an acknowledgement, and the half part at the end is more so a redirection, right? Because with grief, how you need to process it is, understanding what did happen at the end of the day, which is what's processing grief. Like, okay, this was real. This happened, right? I'm not going to deny that that it didn't. We're going to acknowledge that this is the truth. This is the reality of the situation. Um, and learning to accept that this did happen. And that's step one. And step two about grief is actually learning to accepting and acknowledging the things that didn't happen that you wanted to happen, right? As well, of saying, you know, these things didn't take place, these things didn't take place, and these things didn't take place. I would have liked them to. Maybe I even had expectations for them to, and that's just not how things played out, right? I have to accept and acknowledge that that's the reality of what the situation is. And with that, I can finally move forward because now I've accepted and acknowledged the things that did happen, but I also came to the acceptance of the things that didn't, right? And then the third thing is acknowledgement, and it's the acknowledgement of what is in the present moment, right? What it is that currently going through something right now that's a little bit challenging. I'm working my way through educating myself on how to get out of this. I'm working my way through building a more resilient nervous system. I'm currently on the journey to making it there, right? I'm putting in the work every single day, acknowledging that this is what I'm doing currently in the present moment. And then the kind of 3.5 part, the half part is, and now I can finally stop dwelling on the past and start redirecting my focus towards a healthier future as well. Okay. So that's why I say it's a 3.5 step. You want to acknowledge and accept what did happen, what didn't, and then you want to acknowledge what is happening and what you're doing to make those changes currently in the present day, and how that's going to positively affect how you want your future to play out moving forward as well. Okay, 3.5 steps there. Does that make sense for you as well, Ariel?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like what you mentioned about that last step of being logical, right? Getting out
Mhm,
of that kind of emotionally driven state or part of your brain and getting more logical and saying objectively what's actually happening right now. Separating the past, separating, even maybe thoughts of the future, but right now, what is the situation so so I can be present and learn from this and move forward so I'm not carrying this with me.
mhm, mhm. Totally agree. Okay, let's move on to, hey, look, Geraldine's here. Hey,
Hi,
Geraldine.
Geraldine.
How you doing? How you doing? We got your friend here, Ariel.
Oh, melted butter. Hey.
Here you go. I'll give this one to you.
Says, did you guys have a daily mantra you use throughout the day to keep you on track and halt any negativity? I will say, and this is a mantra I had used for a while. For me, it really helped me. A very short sentence. What am I learning? Or for me, it would be, what am I getting from this? That's something that I've used for a long time that was very amplified in my recovery because I'd go through things and if I had a lot of negativity, I'd find myself complicating, intellectualizing, figuring out, trying to say, oh, how can I rationalize this? And I just say, wait a minute. I'm in this position. What's my mantra? What am I learning? What am I getting from this? Or also, this is temporary. That's probably the biggest one that I use. This is temporary. This will pass. It's just like this for now. It won't be like this forever. That got me through a lot of different things. But I feel like sometimes the mantras I said to myself would change for kind of where I was at in recovery. I remember at one point it was, it's okay to rest. You know, it's okay to pull back. It's okay to cater to my nervous system, to my body. And then at another point in time, it's okay to nudge. It's okay to move forward, you know? So this is something where it's very personalized. But for me, that one of this is temporary, this will pass, it's not going to be like this forever, that would really calm me down in intense moments.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, one of my main mantras was, "You're not gonna die." When I
That's a
had
good
to
one.
do this,
I had that one too. You told me that, Junior. You told me that to my face. You said, "You know what? You're not gonna die." And I was like, "He's so right."
I had to tell myself that over and over again, like, "Junior, you're not gonna die. Please don't go to the ER again for the 500th time. You're gonna be alright." Right? It was so hard for me to not call 911, to go to the emergency room for the 500th time. You know why I kept telling myself that? My health anxiety at one point was so high, I genuinely thought I was gonna die. I
Yep.
really did. And every time I went to the ER, you know, it was so bad. I went to the ER, they knew me by my name. I walked right into the door, "Hey, Junior." Oh, man, that's how you know it's bad, man. That's how you know it's bad. And they knew too, "Yeah, we're gonna take him to the back, gonna take his blood, gonna do all this stuff, he's gonna be fine." They all
Yeah.
knew. That's the thing, but I really had to tell myself every day, "Junior, it's just your nervous system. You had nothing to fear. You've been through this a million times. You're not gonna die. Stop going to the emergency room, man." Right? And that was tough for me. I'm not even gonna lie, that was tough. That was one of my mantras, heavy, heavy on that. So,
That's a good one. I heard one earlier actually on a call that I was on. It was a really inspired call, and I was meeting with a thriver that said I came up with a new mantra, and this happened just earlier. So it's funny this question came up, and I was like, "What is it?" And this person says to me, "Don't write a book about it." And I'm like, what a great mantra because you get in those moments and those stories come in. You know, of course, those feelings
yeah.
they're there, they go through you, but those thoughts, those stories, what you're telling yourself about the feeling or the situation or the symptom, she just plainly says, don't write a book about it, move on.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's
Mhm.
a good one.
I like that one. I like that one. What was it? My friends, and I were having this conversation about outcomes, right? You want a different outcome, you gotta do a
Yeah,
different thing, right? You make you end up making the same choices, you get the same result. That's the thing. And so that's something that I told myself often too of like, you make the same choices, you behave the same way, you exhibit the same patterns, you'll live the same life
yeah,
over and over and over. So I had to teach myself, okay, what are some things that need to change? I make the same choices in how I respond to my symptoms, which is not a good response. I make the same choices in my thought patterns when my symptoms get high and I freak out, which I know is not healthy for me, right? Um, and I did all these things. So I was like, I need to change a lot of these things that I know are not healthy for me, but that first required awareness as well. So, and you know how I gained that awareness, believe it or not? It's a very difficult thing to attempt to gain awareness inside of an echo chamber. Okay. I actually mainly gained awareness by going to those group calls in the program and listening to everybody else who was having a tough time about it, right? And I would actually study those people whilst I was a thriver myself, right? And I would learn from those people. Hold on, I'm getting a FaceTime call. Let me decline this. And I would learn from those people. And I would say, okay, I know what responding well looks like because this person just exemplified it. I know what not responding well looks like because the person that just asked a question right after them just displayed that behavior. So I need to copy him and do the opposite of that other person as well. And so I found that self-reflection in myself of like when I saw someone not responding well on a call or freaking out or running a story and they weren't aware of it, something clicks in my mind too of like, hey, I kind of do that as well, right? Like these people, you know, would sometimes frustrate me or annoy me on the call and be like, why can't this person respond well? But more so, I took a little bit of a reflective approach and I was like, number one, I shouldn't judge that person because I was in their shoes. Number two, I kind of still am in their shoes because, like, low key, I still kind of do that behind closed doors as well. If I don't want to be where they are, I need to change. I literally need to do the opposite. Right. And so I started changing my patterns, my behaviors, but doing it in a way that you also don't look down on other people as well, but more so you're grateful for them because they act as your teachers too, you know? Um, and that's where a lot of my awareness came from through self reflection, actually by observing others on the call. And then I made those necessary changes. And then ultimately my outcomes started changing. And then lo and behold, no surprise here, my life started to look different and go down a different direction, a healthier direction. And I'm a different person for it as well, in a good way, of course. But those mantras, going back to that main point, yeah, those were mine, pretty much.
I
So,
like it. Yeah, you made me think of one that I had too, which, and this is probably all sorts of improper English, but I used to say this to myself is you have to do something you haven't done to get something you haven't got.
mhm,
Because in my head, I would think, previous to coming to CFS recovery, I had experience as an integrative health coach and nervous system work. And I think, okay, not necessarily, oh, I've got this figured out, but oh, I'll do what I did this time or that time or this time. And I think, wait a minute, I've been doing this for how long? And here's where I've gotten. Maybe I need to open my mind a little bit and try
mhm.
something new. So I think that sometimes when you hear a suggestion, you listen to something and think, wow, that sounds a little bit scary. You could think, okay, where's the opportunity in that? Because that could lead me somewhere I haven't gotten before. And that's what I'm going for.
I remember telling Miguel I had this one symptom um, really bothered me. It really did. I told him, I'm doing everything and anything to try and fix it to make this dang thing go away. I tried this and this and this and this and this. I feel like I've exhausted all of my options in an attempt to try to fix it. I'm doing all these different things in hopes to get a different outcome to try to fix this thing, and it's not going away. He goes, have you ever tried not trying to fix it? I was
You
like, that's
mean I
so
can let
hard
it
for
be?
someone to hear, you
Yeah.
know? Especially someone's got a really bad habit of intellectualizing how they feel, attempting to understand it. You come to the realization way later down the line, understanding how you feel and then learning how to process your feelings are two totally different worlds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes they don't mesh well. Sometimes it's about being like, you know what, I feel this way and I'm not going to pick it apart. I'm just going to roll with it.
Mhm, mhm. It's funny because I learned about the nervous system work stuff way before I actually learned how to process it emotionally.
Yeah.
I knew it was from my nervous system. I knew my limbic brain was in a heightened state. I knew my free prefrontal cortex was down. I knew about the cell danger response. I knew why my mitochondria was behaving in the way it was, and my adrenals, and the vagus nerve and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, so this is happening, and all this is happening, and this is why this is taking place. And whilst I understand it, I was still freaking out when it was happening. So it just goes to show you can literally know all the science behind it and still
Yep.
freak out when it takes place
Yeah,
as
your
well.
amygdala just takes over. It hijacks you in that moment. That's when it comes back to those habits that you form. And when you start forming that habit of, okay, I'm not going to over intellectualize things, not just in these kind of dire moments, but on a regular basis, in the rest of
Mhm,
my life, so that those good habits stand strong in those lower moments, but yeah, that's so
mhm.
true.
It's like that phrase. I heard this phrase, I never forget it. You cannot intellectualize your way out of a condition that requires you to feel your feelings. You really can. It's really important. Some of us in the program don't know how to do that because we don't know how to feel our feelings because we were literally taught to intellectualize everything. We based our self-worth off performance, off of externals, off of the gratifications of others. We've built our entire persona, identity, and everything that we know about ourselves centered around achievement, doing well, intellectualizing, understanding, performing to very high standards, standards that may not have even been our own as well. So for some folks in the program, for the first time in their lives, we're teaching them actually how to feel emotions. That's not something that should be judged or looked down upon either. Everyone has a different past. It's just this is a very real thing people actually experience, you know? So, and it took me becoming a coach to understand that. So, very, very cool. Let's go to Nita. Ariel, what you got for this?
All right. It says, hello, Junior and Ariel. I've developed anxiety sitting at the dining table. I eat sitting on the couch or bed. I fear walking outside the house alone. Yeah, this is relatable for me. I used to get my food and then kind of scurry away to my bed because I would get really intense anxiety when I would sit at the table and eat. And I did this thing that didn't help me very much, where I'd say, okay, I'm going to push through this. It's time to eat. I'm not going to have any anxiety. I am going to sit there. I am going to force myself to eat this food and I'm going to like it. Because I felt like I could kind of push my way through this. But I learned that, there were some baby steps I could take to get to the point where I could sit at the table and I could eat without anxiety. And before reaching that point, I had to learn to tolerate the anxiety to an extent. So for me, what that looked like was I initially would eat in bed still. I'd allow myself to do that. That I would kind of swat away that harsh inner critic that would say, you should just be able to, and then I would finish the rest of my meal. And this might sound kind of silly, but I would quite literally finish the last like 2 minutes of my meal at the table so that I could start adjusting to that feeling I would get I was so uncomfortable with. And although later in my recovery, I actually transitioned to not distracting myself while eating, something that did help me change my association with eating at the table was having some nice, gentle, calming music on in the background, making sure that the activities I was doing before this activity were calming, gentle, soothing, or maybe even uplifting, something that excited me, that put me in a good mood. So I could start kind of teaching my nervous system it is safe to do this activity. But yeah, the actual kind of nitty gritty of eating at the table was transitioning from 1 to 2 minutes of eating at the table going, I don't like this very much, but I'm going to try my best to respond well, to being able to eat full meals at the table. And it started with, say, 2 minutes. And I increased that to, I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes. And I took that one a little slow, but over time, I didn't have to take it that incrementally. I think I reached about 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I could hang out with other people while eating, which was a huge thing for me at the time. So for me, it was just a matter of taking it slowly and nudging forward where manageable, right? And not expecting I'm going to wait for this anxiety to leave so that I can eat at the table. I had to say, I'm just going to have to roll with it and bring these symptoms with me. And while it's tolerable, while I can do this, I'm going to work on changing that association to this is okay while I'm eating. And I'm just going to check in with myself and see, when I can do that. So I tried doing that. It was a very intentional thing for me. I did that a couple times a week, and then over time it got better. But for me, it was a balance of not overthinking the living daylights out of it, because I had all these weird expectations for myself. I was like, you just need to sit up and eat. And I did that a few times. And as you can imagine, it didn't go well. It developed this self-fulfilling prophecy where I'd go, oh, see, I can't do it. So I had to be gentle with myself and kind of wean into this activity. What are your experiences with this, Junior? I'm really curious.
I'm sorry, I'm still caught up on the fact that you said you got your food and you scurried away. That sounds like a literal raccoons.
That's what it would be like, Junior. I'll set the scene. So I would get, sometimes I'd have my stepdad help make food, or I'd heat something up, or I would make food, and I was so embarrassed. Like I'd have like my stepdad would sit at the table to eat, or he'd have someone over and they'd eat, and I wouldn't want to like I had a lot of shame associated with not being able to do that. So I'd look around and be like, no one's gonna call me out on this, right? And I'd kind of escape to my little room and I'd just be like, okay. And I would eat fast too. I'd be like, I don't want to think about this, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm done. Whew, that's over. That's
Yeah,
how it used to be. But yeah, I scurried for sure.
that is a very interesting word choice, I'll tell you that. To say the least. I mean, just looking at the nature of this question, right? The clues are there, you
Yeah.
know. Anxiety sitting at the table, right? So your nervous system gets revved up at the table. Um, I eat sitting on the couch or the bed, which means your brain has associated the couch and the bed as a safe space, right? Here's the next clue here we got, Nita, which is you got a fear of walking outside or the house alone, okay? Which means that um, outside is also a dangerous place. Okay, so just using some context clues on the information that you provided. We have bed as the safe space. We have couch. It's the safe space. Um, Even the kitchen, which is still in your home, is considered dangerous, and then going outside of your home is dangerous as well, which means your circle of safety is probably quite small. That's the thing. You want to stretch that circle of safety, you slowly make it bigger by challenging yourself a little bit to sit at the dinner table a little bit more, right? Because it's not like you don't have the physical capacity to do it. You do. It's just your brain considers anything out of that small circle a little bit dangerous. So when we go out of that circle, your brain is kind of just like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on here? What's going on here? I don't feel safe in this area. And like Ariel suggested, counterbalancing and calming that system down when your brain's having that danger response of going out of your comfort zone by listening to a calm and gentle music, right? By doing something that makes you feel relaxed a little bit so you can signal to the brain, it's just the dinner table. It's not dangerous, right? And the same thing with you going outdoors. So slowly we got to start making our world bigger, right? You're going to have fear when you do it, and that's okay. You want to challenge that fear a little bit. And you want to challenge it with a little bit of courage and bravery. Remember, the definition of courage is not the lack or absence of fear. It's understanding that you still feel the fear, but you still choose to do it anyways. That's how you slowly challenge and make your world bigger little by little. But I agree with everything that Ariel said too. It's just this is my take on it a little bit. So scurried away. That's what my dog does when he steals a piece of bread. Um, then he runs. He's sleeping right here. He's sleeping right next to me. I'm just hoping he
Oh,
doesn't get up and start barking. You know,
Thunder Pug.
Thunder Pug. It is rainy season here now where I live. Thunder Pug has activated. He'll literally hear the thunder. His eyes will like do this, like just go in different directions. Little full psycho mode. Man, it's
He's cute
great. And he
though.
likes to fight the air conditioning too at night. I don't know what that is.
Oh,
Probably
that's
some kind of
hilarious.
trained association with the noise that it makes. So
Poor little
okay,
guy.
you guys gotta see him one day. So
You'll have to bring him sometime when we all get together. That would be so cool, Junior.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
That would
He's
be
gonna literally
hilarious.
cause chaos. I'll tell you what, if we all meet up in Orlando, you'll definitely get to meet him. That's
That
for
would be
sure.
really cool.
Hmm. Okay. We got Tony up. What you got, Ariel?
All right. Tony says, how do you get back to that feeling excitement of life without the habit of constantly worrying about how you're going to feel? I feel like anxiety will always be a subject in my life and I don't like it. Yeah, this is something that in a lot of ways gets better as you continue in recovery. And the interesting thing, at least for me, when I was in recovery, or when I was in CFS recovery as a thriver, was that my anxiety, the more I focused on it, the bigger it got. So that magnifying glass effect was very real. So for me, I would start thinking, okay, I need to figure out how I can feel excited for life, how I can drop this anxiety. I need to think about not worrying. How do I think myself into not worrying? And that's one of those moments that I had to just say, I'm just going to have faith that this is something that's going to align itself, you know, and it's going to get better. But, of course it isn't without work. Getting to that stage where you can say, okay, what are my values? What are things that I really enjoy doing? And looking at what am I doing? and what do I want to be doing? How do I align those things more? And I found for myself that that feeling of excitement for life came back when I really took a look at what I was doing and how I could actually feel like I was being my actual authentic real self and doing those things. And I didn't realize this while I was in it, but I didn't feel that way at all when I had a lot of anxiety and I was really struggling with CFS. I thought it was normal. I thought I was being me, but I come to realize that it just took me saying, oh, I wonder what I want to do. I wonder what I like to do, you know, and knowing that in survival mode, it is very hard to feel excitement for life. When you're in survival mode, your nervous system is looking at what is directly in front of you with that tunnel vision. It feels unsafe oftentimes to look ahead and see excitement for life. That hope can feel kind of dangerous in those moments. So this is something that gradually does get better. And with a little bit of work of, what do I want to do and how can I foster excitement in my life? This is absolutely something that can be accomplished. I had my doubts when I came in. I was like, am I going to be recovered from CFS with an anxiety disorder? Or am I going to be recovered with CFS and just be okay with having anxiety every single day? I was okay with it, honestly. I was like, who cares? I mean, as long as I can get rid of the CFS. But it really, my mind changed on that. I started realizing, oh my gosh, the anxiety is a symptom. It's just a symptom. It baffled me because I had spent so long trying to get, diagnoses and treatments and figuring things out. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. If I treat this just like any other symptom, let's say if I treated this like, okay, so this is like having vertigo or tinnitus or, having a rash or something like that, I could separate myself from it in a way that I didn't feel as invested and I could start seeing myself without it. So those are my experiences and kind of observations on that.
And I totally agree as well. Living in alignment with your values, your interests, the things that you genuinely enjoy, the things that you want to do, these things will bring back the passion, the excitement, right? Back into your life. When you fill your day with low priority items, when you fill your day with things that you have to do, when the majority of your day is filled with low value ticket items, it doesn't feel as exciting, right? At all. So totally agree with Ariel here on filling your day with a lot of high priority, high value things that matter to you, right? You'll start feeling that excitement come back. You know where I see this the most commonly, Ariel, is people who work jobs that they genuinely hate
Yeah.
or they don't like. That means the majority or at least half of your day is being filled up with a low priority or a low value item, right? You do that consistently, you start to become very sad. You start to lose a lot of energy, right? You start to lose a lot of that passion, that excitement for life. You really do, right? That's what I see most commonly with folks who have that capacity, that capability to work, and then they wonder why is why is the passion not there? You ask them what the majority of their day looks like. Oh, well, I do work this job until like 5 or 6 p.m. Okay, do you like it? No, I hate it. I really do. You know what I mean? So take a look at your days, you guys. Fill them with stuff that is important to you. Okay. All right. Let's go to Jaina or Yana. It's one of the two.
All right. Well, they said how to deal with colds and flus during CFS. I'm having a strong cold and I'm having trouble getting rid of it. Feels even stronger with CFS. Any encouraging words for me? Yes, it's interesting because I treated getting sick a lot like I treated adjustment periods. I would take care of myself, support my body, rest when I needed to, nudge forward where I could when it was manageable. But I know that I had a handful of times where I got sick and I was like, wow, this is crazy. This virus lasted a month. This is nuts. And I remember I think it may have been you or it was Miguel, but I said something, you Junior or Miguel, but I said something like, wow, this is lasting a long time. And one of you kind of pointed out to me, your nervous system is kind of exaggerating this, so that's something that was pointed out to me that was helpful is that, kind of like we talked about earlier with feelings and grief when it comes to being ill, your nervous system can absolutely kind of stretch that, exaggerate that, amplify things, make them last a little bit longer. So for me, when I would get sick, I learned that after about, a week, 2 weeks, if I was still feeling in the pits of it, I would encourage myself to nudge forward gently, in case it was my nervous system kind of stoking the fire a little bit of that illness. And most often when I would end up doing that, it would end up kind of disappearing over the next few days or the next week. So that's something just to be aware of, is your nervous system absolutely can exaggerate pre-existing or new things that come along. And treating them in general like adjustment periods can absolutely help, because at the end of the day, your body just needs, and your nervous system just needs, that feeling of safety, restoration, and knowing that you're not going to pull the plug on everything, right? When sick, we don't want to say, oh gosh, I'm scared, I'm sick, I'm not going to do anything in case symptoms come up. No, it's important to still move. If you have to rest, that's okay, but get up every so often, right? Get up, stretch, get a cup of water, do something, encourage yourself to still do things while manageable, even if it's just to occupy your time. I know that when I'd be sick, often, like when I was in an adjustment period, I would just get very bored, so I would ask myself, okay, I'm going to get curious. What can I do to occupy myself and encourage myself to move a little bit, or encourage myself to stimulate myself cognitively a little bit? But,
Mhm.
but yeah, definitely that having trouble getting rid of it. Those first few times I was just like, it's crazy. This cold's lasting a month or two. And I just really had to remind myself, no, I have a hypersensitive nervous system that's stretching this, and it's on me to kind of nudge forward a little bit.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Ariel, I don't have anything to say on top of that. So, I mean, that was a fantastic answer. What can I say?
I
Okay.
really want to know how to say this person's name. I'm just going to let you know that I really love how, who was that earlier that actually, Madai. Yes, we said it right, Junior. I always feel
Madai.
that Madai. I always feel that way. I'm like, I hope people know they can tell us if we say their names wrong. Maybe it's because I have a weird name. I don't know.
No, that's it. That's it. Yeah, Madai. Madai.
Madai. We got it.
Yeah, and he asks, Junior, how you doing since recovering? You feel like you're fully back at it? You still got a ways to go? Are you able to do things like you used to? Yeah, I'm completely normal. But I there's no other way to say it. Like I'm just completely back to normal. Um and that's not something I made up. Like the coaches we all met up last year, they've seen me as well. Like no, I'm fine. Like completely normal. Um it's crazy because when you look back, we met all the coaches in person together. You wouldn't even be able to tell any of us went through this. It's actually insane to be like, around other recovered people, and you just look at them and realize you would have never known.
Yeah.
You would have never known. It was Miguel and I were hanging out in the pool, and it was funny because you brought up the idea of, can you believe at one point we questioned if we were to ever going to be able to hang out with people ever again, or take a vacation ever again, or what it is. And then we were just reflecting on that for a little second. And we sat in silence for about 30 minutes. Or not 30 minutes, about 30 seconds. And then a bug flew on his chest, and I never seen somebody freak out like that in my life.
I remember that. That was in the hot tub. Yeah,
Ariel, you were there too.
that was so funny. It was
You were
like
just sitting there.
this cute little crickety. I don't know what it was, but it was little.
Yeah, he's gonna hate me for saying this. We were all sitting there just
That's
hanging
okay.
out
He
by
can
the
respond
pool.
well. That's fine.
He didn't. He really didn't respond well at all. He was sitting there just reflecting. Man, can't believe how far we come. Bzzz. Ah!
That was hilarious.
Oh, he's gonna hate me for telling this story, but
That's okay. He's human. We're all human. We all got to know, right?
it's moments like that, right? Really precious moments like that after you recover, you never take for granted because you never thought you'd have those moments again,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that's really important to understand. This is not an act. Like I'm not halfway recovered. Like I'm there. Like I made it. Like I'm normal completely, you know? I'm okay now. And you will be too, man. All of you guys here on this call, you're gonna get to where we are. I'm nothing special. I'm literally just a regular guy. Seriously. So if I can do it, you can do it. If Ariel can do it, you can do it as well, right? Then we're all gonna go over to her house and play that giant piano in the background. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let's see here. Uh-huh. We got the Simon 2K, right? Ariel, you want to read this one?
Sure. Simon 2K says Miguel often talks about 3 lives, 1 before, 2 during, and 3 after CFS. I've also heard that this third life can be better than the first one. Can you truly surpass your pre-CFS quality of life? Simon, yes, you can. It is amazing. Um, I don't know. I even think about this question. I'm not like crying emotional, but I'm just like, wow, it's amazing to me. How, like for me personally, it feels like I started with almost like a clean slate. I had CFS for a long time since I was a kid, um, into my um, into my late 20s, early 30s, and my life previous to getting ill and then recovering, what there wasn't a whole lot of life there, right? So for me it was like starting with a clean slate. But absolutely I can say that even in times where I was ill but very high functioning, and for myself thought I had recovered, right? I even had a few doctors say, oh yeah, you did it, wow, that's crazy, you know um definitely better than before. So surpassing your pre-CFS quality of life, I have the personal opinion that you kind of have to recover, right? I know for
Mhm.
me, previous to recovering, I had a lot of kind of traits and habits and qualities that weren't necessarily conscious, but they fostered stress. And they fostered a lot of black and white behaviors and a lot of things that kept me sick. And those are the things that have changed, that have actually given me very high quality of life. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. What are yours, Junior?
Yeah, my life is better than it's ever been these days, right? Uh, I mean, don't get it twisted, everybody. Before I got sick, I had some really high highs as well. I had a good time with my life. I did. I had a lot of energy before I got sick. Um, you know, I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of great moments, you know. But there was one thing that I always lacked that I didn't even realize I didn't have. And that's the logical thinking. It's the emotional stability. It's the maturity that I lacked. It's the ability to make a grounded decision, right? It was I was very emotional in the past. I was very immature. I was very irrational. I was very impulsive. That's the thing. I didn't think clearly and I thought I was doing all of the right things, right? I had a very large ego in the past as well. I judged a lot. So, whilst my life physically looked good, mentally, I was not in the best place. And I didn't even realize it. And a big part of that was because I didn't know, because I didn't have awareness, because this is the type of energy that I grew up around my entire life. I don't judge my parents for it, or my family, or my environment, or my upbringing. The past is in the past. We'll keep it there. We move forward, right? Move forward. But as I look back, I reflect, and now I have all of the things. Now I have really high highs and really great memories, and I spend time with my friends and my family. I work hard, but I enjoy the things that I do for work. And then there's that extra added component that was always missing. I have that emotional stability. I have that maturity. I have that logic in me now. I feel grounded. I feel centered. I feel good. That's what I feel. I feel happy, but a happiness that's not rooted in adrenaline. And I feel happy from a place where I'm just happy. I don't know what other way to say. You understand, right? You'll get there as well. Uh, my life doesn't actually look too much different than it did before I got sick. I'm going to be honest with you, but I'll tell you what, it feels a hell of a lot different. That's the major difference, really, between the two. I was doing a lot. It wasn't healthy. These days, I can feel it. That's the thing. I'm doing similar to what I was doing before. It feels so much different, right? So you got folks like me who knows what high energy, who knows what, uh, having fun, what being, having those things feels like, and then losing it, and then coming back and getting it back, but then having it feel different than before. And then we have folks on the team like Ariel, who I'm so grateful for, who has lived a lifetime of dysregulation and now has come out on the other side. Ariel, you're experiencing a lot of things for the first time, right?
It's incredible. I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm telling you, it feels like even like the smallest thing, like when we met in Arizona and I almost missed my flight and I ran through the airport. That is the first time I have ever actually ran. Like just full on, I'm going running. I'm making that flight, and I cried on the plane. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I ran. I just out of nowhere ran and I'm fine. Absolutely fine." And like things like that occur to me. And I feel like having had CFS kind of makes a lot of regular life problems, which I'm grateful for today, to be honest with you, but it makes those seem like gold-plated problems.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me in my position, it's just like I experience a lot of new things, even when it comes to you guys. I've never been able to have like more than like 5 close friends at once. I'd always be dropping people, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't manage. I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the brain capability to be able to manage relationships like that. And now I can be, close with people I volunteer with. I can be close with my regular friends. I can stay in communication with the team, of course, thrivers. That's what gets me the most is the ability to have relationships like I can today.
Mm.
And that's not to say I don't struggle. I mean, we're human. We have human struggles just like anybody else.
Sure.
Stuff happens to us, curveballs come, things are
Mhm.
frustrating, things can cause fear, get worries, whatnot. It's just that the approach is different. It's way different today and it's more natural. It feels like second nature, or close to second nature to respond in ways that, you know, are more neutral today.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. We still got problems, you guys, right? Life problems that come up. We get into car accidents, things happen to our family members. We get sick. Sometimes too, every now and then, stuff comes up at work, stuff comes up in our personal lives. We're still dealing with stuff as human beings, ultimately, just like everyone else that walks the face of the planet. We approach it a lot differently. That's the difference, right? It's not really that life gets easier. It's more so you just get stronger at the end of the day. I think that's the really important distinction there. So,
Yeah.
Nariel, it's just great to see your story unfold because you literally don't know what's happening next. You might do something again for the first time in your life next week. You don't know.
This
It's so
this
crazy
happened.
watching you go through it.
It's so interesting, like, I think about what was the last thing I had? Um, Something happened last week. I think I was, what was oh, I'll be honest with you guys, I was speeding a little bit while I was driving.
Mhm,
I got pulled over. He didn't end up
mhm,
giving me a ticket. I ran a
okay,
stop sign, didn't see it, shouldn't have done it. I'll do better next time. But he pulled me over, and I remember and I've been pulled over maybe 1 or 2 other times in my life, and both of those times, this is embarrassing, but I just started crying. Like I had a panic attack on the spot, started crying. This cop came up, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, I know what I did. My bad. I'll do whatever it is I need to do to rectify the situation." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can handle stress. This is crazy." And I felt ecstatic about it. I was like, "This is so cool." I got pulled over and I handled it like a mature adult. I didn't have to think about what's going to happen to my body. I'm just living the adult life. So yeah, this happens to me like weekly, Junior. With something.
you see, and you probably gave that cop a lot of relief too. In his deep down in his mind, he's probably like, "Oh, thank God, a normal one."
He did, he told me that. He told me, he's like, "Oh, I just love your attitude." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, he told me it was refreshing that somebody could take accountability, and that's why he didn't give me a ticket. He was just like,
Really?
"Yeah, I didn't get a ticket." He just was like, "All right, do better next time." I'm like, "I will, my bad. I was rushing. I let things get to me today. Totally my fault." And he was just
Mhm.
like, "Thank you for the relief."
Win-win situation
Yep.
there, Ariel. Look at that. Incredible. Incredible. So, more to come. Next time you and I do a live stream, I guess we'll share more of Ariel's firsts.
Yeah, we'll have to check in. Maybe I don't know. maybe I'll do something big. Maybe I'll go bungee jumping or something. Those are the things that I never even thought could ever be a part of my life. And I'm going to do one of those sometime, and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, you let me know because I'm never doing that. Okay.
Yeah,
So
you can live vicariously through me.
that's right. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if it's even a real stereotype. I don't do well with heights, and neither does my entire family. Apparently, someone told me there's a stereotype. Asian people, just in general, don't do heights. I don't think that's necessarily true. I got a whole bunch of Asian friends. They're not really afraid to be up high. Me, not doing it. So, Ariel, I'll tell you what, the bungee jumping, that's all you.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'll be standing right
Maybe
over there. Yep.
I think maybe I'll settle for like a hot air balloon ride or something. That's what we were thinking about doing. I know Coach Krista, myself, and a few of the people were like, maybe we'll do a hot air balloon ride. That was so funny, Junior. You're like, you guys
Nope.
have so much fun. You
Nope.
know,
I'm
I'll be on
staying
the
my ass right
sidelines.
on the
Yep.
ground. That's what I'm doing. You're
It
gonna
was
catch
funny.
me on the ground doing this, waving up at you.
Yep.
Nope.
I'll take the pictures. Yeah.
That's right. You have fun. Yeah. I'm not going to that. I'm not going to that. All right.
Good to know your limits. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. Everyone's got their limits. My limit is about
Yay high.
the
No.
ground. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. About yay high. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. We got process positive. Let's see here. Any tips on how to relax after doing a task outside of the house? Once I complete a task and get home, I am high strung for more than an hour due to adrenaline. This usually leads to an adjustment period. I'll tell you something right now. When the nervous system is in a sensitive place, it has a very difficult time switching from one mode to another, right? And this can go and express itself in multiple ways, right? You have a difficult time going from sleeping to waking. We see that very often in the program. You have a very difficult time. Some people have difficulty taking shower, which means they have difficulty going from a wet to dry or a dry to wet. Or sometimes when the temperature takes an extreme shift, people have difficulty going from a warm to a cool or a cool to a warm. Or let's say, Ariel, when we went to Arizona, I live in a rather humid place in Florida, and Arizona was not humid. I'll tell you right now. So, transitioning from a humid to feeling like you're being fried in an oven as well, right? The nervous system has to transition between states. I'll tell you what, process positive. That also includes you going from an adrenalized state to a resting state as well, right? The more resilient, the more healthy your nervous system is, it'll be easier to shift from that one mode into the other. Because your nervous system is a little bit more sensitive, it's going to take some time. What would usually take a matter of maybe 20, 30 minutes for a cool down could take literal hours for it to take place. You keep doing the work, you stay consistent with it, your nervous system will become more resilient, more stronger, and as a byproduct of that, we'll be able to smoothly shift states a little bit more quickly. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Ariel, you wanna chime in? What do you think?
I feel like your response just about covered it. I think that
Yeah.
um, that kind of transition is so important. And also the other thing is kind of what I see here is talking about being high strung for more than an hour due to the adrenaline, leading to an adjustment period. It's really important with those associations. I know it's hard because things happen and then you have symptoms, but remind yourself that, okay, maybe it is from being high strung, maybe it's from doing something outside, maybe it's adrenaline, whatever is causing this adjustment period, it's okay. I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter what caused this because you bet if you say this usually leads to an AP, your nervous system will start saying, oh, it does. Maybe I should protect you from that. So that's something that I noticed in this particular comment I just wanted to mention is
Mhm,
that will definitely change as you continue to respond neutrally to this coming up.
mhm. Absolutely. Let's go to Madai because he asked us about the different types of lives, and he says it's funny you laugh now, but man, scary times. And I'll tell you what, that's so true. Now that you're recovered, when you're really healed, man, you can look back at your life, you can laugh at it, you can reflect at all the things that you've done, and you can look at it through a different lens. But I'll tell you right now, when you're in the heat of things, it's really not funny. It's really not funny, right? And Ariel, I think you can relate to this as well. When you're in the depths, like it's really not a good time. Like it's a very serious
Yeah.
time. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah, I used to give that harsh look. I remember you and I were on a check-in call, Junior, and I remember
Mm,
this like clear as day. I was talking about food intolerance, and you were kind of joking, "Oh yeah, that's rough." And I gave you this look. I was like, "Yeah, it is. I'm going through it, buddy." You know,
yeah.
and it's interesting is it's almost like looking back at those things, it feels like a blip. Right, and that's something to kind of take from this is being able to look back and kind of laugh at things is because it doesn't feel as, tumultuous inside anymore, but absolutely, you're so right about that, is that it is
Mhm,
scary times, and in those moments, it just feels like, "Oh my gosh, this may never end, I don't know what to do. How is there gonna be a resolution to this?" But keeping in
mhm,
mind that even kind of that banter with the nervous system, for me, when I would get really scared, sometimes I would almost joke with my nervous system in my head, and I'd kind of
mm,
try to laugh. I'd try to make a joke out of things so I could kind of take the seriousness away from it a little bit, so that I could send more of that safety signal than the danger signal to my nervous system. But you bet those times are scary, but they do pass.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I want you guys to know if you're ever on a group call, right? Um, if you see us like laughing, joking, reflecting back, smiling on, on those times that were really rough, um, no one's laughing at you.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, just in a different place now these days. And trust me when I say this, because Ariel, you've been there too, and now you're here now. Um, you'll get there as well. I know it seems impossible where you'll get to a place where you're healed enough where you can look back at this and reflect on it with a smile, but you
yeah.
will. You will get there. Okay. So good. Good,
Yeah, I
good.
used to watch, like, recovery interviews, and there were some channels that I watched, and I'm telling you, when some of those people would smile or laugh about things, my soul would just cringe a little bit. I'd be like, "Oh, you have no idea." But it's
Yeah.
interesting being on this side of it now. I'm like, "No, they're just reflecting." Like, they're just thinking, "Oh gosh, it's almost like I laugh too sometimes because 'cause I'm like, "Wow, it's just amazing to me," right? When I think about, "Wow, I'm not in that experience." And then I, kind of think of, like, the people, for instance, you guys who are, attending with us right now. I just know it's totally possible for you guys to move forward and get better too. So there's something really exciting about that for me or enlightening about that for me.
Hmm. That's the type of energy I try to bring onto the calls too. I try to keep it as casual, but a balance of professional as well, as lighthearted as I can. I like making it a little bit personal, but in a good way, right? Where we can laugh, tell jokes, feel each other's energy, but it's a lighter type of energy. This is the type of energy that really helped me get through some of my darkest days in my recovery, and it's the energy that I only felt sometimes when I was on a group call. Because sometimes on the group calls, Ariel, we got to understand that it might be their only moment for a relief. In their situation, the calls could, in the program, it could be their escape a little bit because they definitely were mine as well. So I'm very mindful of the type of energy I bring onto a call. I try to be as uplifting, positive. I like making people laugh. You know, this thing's tough enough. You guys cry enough behind the scenes, right? It's healthy to laugh, to share, to uplift each other, you know, to feel good as well sometimes. And I never forget that because at one point during my recovery, I'll tell you this right now. Um, I had the worst day of my life at one point in my recovery, and I always keep that in mind too, where anytime I talk to somebody or have a one-on-one conversation or even on a group call, I need to be mindful that there is a possibility that that individual could be having the worst day of their life
Yeah.
and you don't know it as well, right? So as a coach, we hold a responsibility to counter that energy with something a little bit more uplifting, right? I saw Miguel, he was a coach, but he was also like a symbol of what could be, right? My energy was so dark back then, and maybe I just hoped one day it would become as bright as his, and it has. Now I make fun of him these days for the pool incident, so I'm never gonna let him live that down, by the way, people. I'm really
Nope.
not. I'm really not.
Nope.
Man, I wish I recorded that. I really do. It's okay. We'll have a story to tell. Okay. Excellent. Um, let me see here. Let's go to did we answer a question from Northern Light yet? Do you remember?
No, we have
No?
I don't think so. I think this
Okay,
would be the first one.
let's do it. I'll let you do this. I'm gonna let my dog out the gate of my office really quick, Ariel, so I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. All right. Northern Light says, I have a symptom that I want to ask about. Electric buzz in my head, and when I relax, my head and neck jerks. Feels like my brain makes a 360 in my head. Lots of headache, but relief after the jerks. And know that this absolutely can be the nervous system. This is I experienced this as well. I had this is one of the symptoms that this is one of those symptoms that kind of baffled doctors a little bit for me. I had a few of those. And with this one, I would get um these kind of involuntary jerks or movements, and I'd get that kind of electrical buzzing feeling inside. And this is something that is very, very common with CFS. So this is, and I think, looking back, I can see that when I went through that, I'm almost certain that what would happen is I would get adrenaline dumps, and I'd have this adrenaline in my system. I get that kind of electrical buzzing inside, and then I get that kind of jerking, and it would scare me, right? So for me, what was really important was um, kind of reminding myself, it's okay. This is the nervous system. This isn't anything that, like Junior said earlier, I'm not going to die from this. This isn't going to take me out. It's going to be okay. Knowing that the less that you panic in those moments, the less intense it's going to be. So it's really important in those moments to kind of have a neutral, calm, collected attitude and just remind yourself, this is my nervous system checking in, trying to see if I'm safe. The more that I respond neutrally, the better it's going to get. And I know for me, when I would get those kind of neck jerks, this is going to sound perhaps funny, but I would get those neck jerks, and to keep me from panicking, I would get a neck jerk. And for me, I'd usually tilt to the left. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I'd tilt to the left, this muscle would get activated in the base of my neck, and my head would turn. I just start dancing a little bit. I know it sounds weird. My neck would jerk, and I'd be like, nope, I'm just going to kind of pop a dance move right now because I'm so not going down with this symptom today. I'm not spiraling. I'm not doing this. I'm responding well, so know that this absolutely can be the nervous system. And in particular, the electrical buzzing is very, very common.
I just realized now I'm on mute the whole time.
Well, we
Good.
can hear you.
Good, good. Thanks for answering that while I was out, Ariel.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
definitely.
Here we go. Yana said, don't write a book about it. That's just what I needed to hear. That's so useful. Yeah, don't run those stories, you guys.
Nope.
Right. You know what I noticed is a trend that I'm noticing this week? Two people that we've encountered so far this week who are in a lot bigger of adjustment periods than they need to be. And here's why I say a lot bigger of adjustment periods than they need to be. Okay. It's because they're not responding well because they're fearful. When I ask them what they are fearful about, they would tell me a concept or an idea that they were fearful about, a concept or an idea, mind you, that they created themselves in their own head. I literally talked to a girl yesterday, and she's not moving as much as she probably should be. And I asked her, why is that? And she said, I have an intense fear. I said, intense fear of what? And she said, my heart rate. I'm afraid my heart rate is beating so fast and using all my energy that it's taking the necessary resources away from me to be able to walk to the bathroom or the kitchen. And I said, okay, that's an interesting idea. Who told you that concept or came up with that idea? She said, it's just something that I kind of made up. And I was like, so hold on, let me get this straight. So you're elongating your adjustment period because you're too fearful to move, fearful of a concept that you've created in your head and then since convinced yourself to be true. And she's like, you know what? Now that you say it like that, yeah, yeah, that's what I did. And that's when you come to the realization, the brain, right? when it needs something to rationalize, to logically, look at, to kind of make sense of something, if it doesn't have something to latch onto, it'll make up its own concept, right? And that's the story. And then you believe the story to be true. What was first originally a fictional story has turned into nonfiction, uh, and then you believe it, right? And then you get stuck. And that's why it's really important to have a coach or some kind of logical anchor or people you can lean on to say, no, 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 no. Let's come back to planet Earth for a little bit. Um, you just made that up, and now you believe it. Here's the reality of the situation. This is actually what's happening, and here's what's true and what's not. Right?
Yeah.
2 times this week, we've encountered individuals who are doing this to themselves. If you find yourself having the habit of doing it to yourself, um, you know, try to catch yourself when that happens. Become aware of that. And I'm not shaming anybody here for you for it. I'm saying this because I used to do it as well. So I know how it feels to be caught up in your own false confidence about a concept that you feel is so accurate that you've actually, at the end of the day, made up yourself. I've done it. That's the thing. I know how it's like to be in that spiral. Lean on people who have, uh, you know, that ability to be your logical anchor, right? And really believe them too when they're telling you things. It's really important to not just listen to yourself, right? But to really get the feedback from others, especially others who are much more logical in nature, at
Mhm.
least right now, uh, than you. Um, Ariel, let me pick your brain, man. Did you used to do that or?
Oh yeah. Yep. This is my MO. It was, I don't know, like I was thinking about it. I'm like, this is a perfect example of, that idea of the amygdala or the emotional part of your brain wrapping something up as logic. And that would happen to me frequently. I would think, okay, so this is happening because of this reason. I have to tell you exactly what you described about the heart rate, it taking energy. I had the same idea. And I would come up with these kind of plans for it and backup plans and I'd even tell people about it. They look at me like I had 5 heads and I'd think they just don't know what's going on here. This is a very unique situation, but it helped me so much to have a coach and to have not just a coach but the calls and to be able to express these things in vulnerability, right? This is going on, I don't know what to do, and saying this is what's going on and being able to have somebody kindly say to me, I hear you, what you're feeling is valid, but let's look at this a different way. Because you're so right, is it's wonderful to be a person that likes to think. It's wonderful to be a person that's a problem solver, a fixer, but there are places that those attributes should go, and this is not one of those places. Or at least not in this way. So for me, I had to be open to feedback. I had to be willing to be vulnerable enough to actually honestly share what was going on, because sometimes I was correct. Oh, I got it, I just need to respond well. Or okay, this is fear based. But sometimes I'd come up with these ideas like, okay, like I remember one of them. This is a totally random one, but when I would get really stressed out, I had this habit of holding my breath. And when I would hold my breath, I had this idea that from something I read a long time ago, that if you hold your breath for a certain amount of time, it can actually increase the amount of oxygen that's in your blood. So if I held my breath when I was stressed, I'd think I have to do it for at least 20 to 30 seconds, or else it's not going to benefit me. And if I don't do that, then it's going to harm me. That's one of those things. It's just a random little thing that I thought worked that way, and I didn't necessarily tell anyone that, but I found myself doing that one time. And I thought, if somebody else told me they did this, what would I think? Right? If a good friend of mine said to me, hey, Ariel, this is how I approach this matter, what would I say? And that kind of started changing the way I perceived my viewpoints on some of these things. Because in survival mode, I wanted control. It felt very out of control to not have the why or before CFS recovery, have the how. Right. So I think for myself, I wanted to feel control. So I came up with reasons that things went certain ways. So having that kind of humility to say, you know what, I'm here for a reason and I don't have everything figured out. Help. That was helpful for me.
Yep, absolutely. Help is a big word. Big word, big, very powerful word. That's
Yeah.
what that is.
Powerful, challenging sometimes.
And some of you guys might ask the follow-up question, well, Junior, how do I change the concepts that I've already since created in my head and challenge them? Here's what I found, okay? The brain creates these concepts, these ideas in your head because it's trying to make sense of something that ultimately fits your narrative. That's the thing. Instead of attempting to change the concept, zoom out and tackle the issue at its root. What is your narrative? What is the things that you genuinely believe about the situation? I'll give you an example, right? Speaking to somebody as a coach, trying to convince them that all their symptoms are from the nervous system being powered by the brain and its physical connection with uh, the body and how it stems throughout every system. Um, Having a conversation like that with someone who doesn't believe it's the nervous system and thinks it's some kind of ATP misfiring mitochondrial dysfunction, you know, uh, some type of thing going terribly wrong with their body or whatever it is. There's no point in having a conversation with somebody like that because the concepts, the ideas that I'm trying to teach do not align with the concepts and ideas that they've created in their head because the ones that they've made ultimately fit their narrative and the ones that I'm trying uh, to give off are things that directly challenge that as well, right? You have to get someone to try to change their narrative around the situation. Once somebody actually comes around, like you guys, and realizes, I think it is my nervous system. I think it is my brain. I've been through some things that I wasn't aware of in my past, or maybe my family has, or maybe I come from a certain environment, or I had some really unhealthy habits. And okay, I'm starting to put the pieces together. I think there's something a little bit deeper to this, right? I do. I I'm pretty sure this is the nervous system. You know, it all kind of points back to this. And you start building that narrative. Once you build the correct narrative, your brain starts reinforcing that by creating concepts and ideas that also match and align with that, right? So it's not so hard to let go of the older concepts or challenge that. Change what you deep down believe. That's how that works, right? At one point, Ariel, there was a narrative for you that you couldn't get out of this. You can't recover. This is a hopeless cause. There's something terribly wrong with me. I'm broken beyond repair. This is pretty much as good as it gets for me, right?
Yeah.
Um, but little by little by little, you started seeing people getting better. You started seeing programs being created. You started joining groups that were initially for support, and then you realized in those support groups that it wasn't just about people supporting each other. You saw some people actually getting better and leaving. Something sparked in you saying that, hold on now, something's going on here, and there might be a little bit of a chance for me. And whether you realize it or not, your narrative started to change slowly and slowly. And from someone who felt like they couldn't recover to, wait, there's a spark here. There's something to this. And then you started to believe that it could happen for you too. And then once your narrative changed, the things you started telling yourself changed as well. And then because, like you said, you did something different, you received a different outcome. Look at you now, right? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And when you were talking, I was thinking that exactly is that when I started seeing people recover and people have these experiences, it changed the way I talk to myself. And I remember around that period of time when my thought process went from, I don't know, like when I entered CFS recovery, previous to that, I thought I'll never recover. I entered CFS recovery thinking maybe I'll recover. We'll see. And I remember that shift of thinking I can recover. Oh my gosh, I can actually recover. The way I talked to myself changed, and I realized I need to keep talking to myself like I'm a person that can recover. I'm not going to get better unless I do this. So that's something that I definitely tell thrivers is, and I don't believe in that toxic optimism BS or lying to yourself. Your nervous system knows when you lie. If you don't feel that way, I don't think there's a point in saying, I can do this if you really feel down in the dumps. But finding kind of that neutral response to just be like, okay, that's an option. Maybe I can't recover, but let's leave room for a new experience at least. And that's where I had to start was I'm going to leave room for a new experience and I'll leave it at that. So that's something I tell people is leave room for that new experience. If you don't feel like you can recover, I'm not going to try and force you to feel a different way, but just leave room for that new experience at some point because it can happen.
Mm-hmm. And this goes to show for everybody here also on this call that you don't need to believe you can fully recover in order to do it. Ariel, you entered the program with the mindset of maybe I can, we'll see. And you're living proof that that mindset is even good enough,
Yeah,
right?
it is. And I'll be 100% honest with you guys. My thought process was I believe in recovery. I just don't know if I believe in it for me. But for me, I found that, I had a fear. I was like, wow, because I don't have 100% belief in this, I'm not going to get better, but it was okay for me. I had to have the door cracked open on hope. That's all. I didn't even have to have hope. I just had to have that kind of crack of the door open so a glimmer of that light could come in and I was good. And that's what I got by watching the videos, signing up for, CFS recovery. That was me cracking the door open on hope, and that was good enough for me.
Hmm. There you go. And like Melted Butter says here, chiming in on what you said, Ariel, you don't, you have to do something you haven't done to get something you haven't got, right?
You got to do it.
You
You
got
just have to try something new, and the nervous system will resist. The nervous system will say, "Oh no, it's okay. I signed up for this. I'm going to groups. I'm doing what I'm told. I don't need to open my mind." But the thing is to progress and move forward. It's interesting, like you talked about. You can't grow in an echo chamber. You have to try new things. You have to take input. You have to have a bit of trial and error, which feels very threatening sometimes. But that trial and error is what leads to progress of just, and we don't have to do it all at once. That's the thing. I had an idea that I'm going to have to change the core of who I am as a person. I didn't. I just changed a few things that really affected the way that I was handling life that changed me.
it. Really excellent, Ariel. Thank you for your input. And again, your story always continues to inspire me. I feel like I learn something new every time I talk to you about your situation. So, and that's wild because I was your coach. That's the thing,
Yeah,
right? So, and I think the reason for that is I think you're discovering something new about yourself all the time as well, continually every
that's
day.
That's what I was gonna say is I feel like I'm a very curious person. I really love learning new things, and I feel like I look at my experience sometimes, it's like I keep learning things about myself and my process. And I also think too, when you and I met up, Junior, I think I had spent years going to different people, griping and complaining, and this is going on, and this happened to me, and that happened to me. But I think when I joined CFS Recovery, I was like, let's let the rubber meet the road here. Let's go. I've
Hmm.
spent a lot of time figuring out why. Now I need to get into how, because
Hmm.
figuring out the why didn't work for me. I need to actually apply these things. And I did that, but it's interesting is now I have all this reflection, right? I felt like when I was in CFS recovery, I was like, let's do this, and I did some reflecting, but I didn't think too terribly deeply into those experiences. But now I look back and I'm like, wow, what a huge learning experience.
Hmm. You found the right community. You did. You're definitely in the right place. I saw a post in school by one of our newer folks. She's only been in the program for maybe a couple weeks now. And I remember on the post I saw her and she was like, "I finally found my people. I finally found the right place." Should I leave Reddit? Should I leave Facebook? Did you guys do that? And she got quite a few responses, and everyone told her, "Get out of there. It's
Yeah,
not gonna help you. It's not gonna move the needle forward. You need to surround yourself with the right people, the right energy. It's important. Use the program, use the group, use us, but get out of there." And she did. She actually came on the group call that we had, I think it was last week, and she shared a win and she was like, "So I got out of there. And I immediately feel better."
excellent.
Really happy she did it. Really happy she did it. So, and if you're watching here, you know who you are. So, great job. Great
Great
job
job.
taking everyone's advice. Okay. Let's see here. Tony, we already got one of your questions. Maybe I'll loop back, man, when we can get through other people. Okay. You want to do this one, Ariel? What do you think?
Sure. Victor says, did you have any intolerance to supplements? I can't have any. My body literally gives me brain fog and anxiety symptoms. And I can say that I absolutely had intolerance to supplements and medications. And actually, I had multiple chemical sensitivity. So I had intolerance to a lot of different things in my environment. But one of those was supplements, and I know for me, it frustrated me a lot. And that is one of those things that stuck around a bit. I was on some medications in my recovery, and for a period of time there, anytime there was any adjustment to those supplements or the medications, I would have these adjustment periods that I found difficult to handle. And this is what actually taught me, oh, when things bother me, they stick around. So this is one of the first things that I realized, okay, because I had to, my iron was quite low when I entered CFS recovery, and I had to take a supplement. And I was this constant thing of like, does it suck less to take the supplement or does it suck less to not take the supplement? Because and you're always kind of, try in that position trying to figure that out. And I remember when I was able to get on the iron and I was like, I did it. I finally did it. But the thing is I didn't wait for those symptoms to disappear to get on the iron. What I did is I started very, very, for myself, working with my healthcare practitioner, I started at a very low dose, going very slowly, and I had symptoms. But I had symptoms to the extent that I could tolerate them to where they were manageable. Then I got used to them, it got better, and then I would increase. So there's a way to approach these types of things, and it's in a very gradual way, nudging forward. Because before, I would say, you know what, screw it, I'm taking it, it's going to help me, and I'll just kind of bear whatever happens. And I had to let go of that mindset. Because it would either be I'm not doing it or I'm doing it 100%. And I had to say, what's a way I can do this that is like kind to my nervous system, but is still encouraging me, saying, you can do this. It's okay.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ariel. Appreciate that. Let's see here. What else can we do? What else can we do? Okay, let's go to Daria. How about this one? Speaking of supplements, before we move on, I'll tell you like this. I had a mind shift about it. Most of the time, it's not the supplement or the medication. Most of the time, it's usually because your body is not in a stabilized enough place to be able to actually handle the medication and allow it to do its intended purpose of what it's created for. That's been my experience specifically, where I would take a medicine to give me a panic attack. I realized, why is it not working effectively or the way that it's intended? Took the same medicine later down the line. My body was much more stable. Lo and behold, it worked exactly as advertised,
100%. Yeah, this is so true.
So, might not be the medication, it might be the sensitivity of the body. That's the thing. A lot of you guys might have experienced this too. Medications or foods that you once were able to handle, not so much anymore, right? Anything change about the medicine? Probably not. Anything change about the food? Probably not. Stabilize the system. It can help. Okay. Let's go to Daria. Is healing possible just by accepting and feeling the feelings and sensations so the body can digest and detoxify the stress? Well, if we kind of take a look at the nature of the question, by accepting, which is mental emotional, by feeling the feelings, which is emotional, no. I'll tell you why. This is a multi-layered, multi-centered approach. It's part of it, absolutely. Just accepting, feeling the feelings, leaning into it. That's the mindset. That's the emotional part. You also want to support your physical body as well by doing the things that you need to do to help your physical along too. Like, for example, if you feel cold because you have temperature regulation or temperature sensitivity, it would be wise for you to respond well, right? Not let the emotions get to you and try not to freak out when your body is having a reaction to the cold and you start shivering. But it would also be extremely wise to support your physical body in that process and maybe grab yourself a little jacket or a blanket at the same time. That's what I'm talking about. When you feel like your blood sugar drops every couple hours, absolutely. It's really important to not freak out. It's really important to not go into a panic mode when you feel it, right? Respond well to it. Absolutely. Accept it. Feel what you feel, but then support your physical body. Please eat a snack as well if you feel like you need to. It's a combination of the two, not just one or the other. If that makes sense. Okay. What do you think, Ariel? You want to chime in on this?
I just totally agree. I think that when I first read this, I was like, "Oh, that's a good portion of it," but that's not all of it.
Mhm.
Supporting the body, and the thing is that different people need different things. So we can't just sit here and say, "Okay, you accept this, feel that, walk this much, go, drive this much." Different people need different things because we have different nervous systems, right? So at the end of the day, it's a very kind of catered approach of what's going to work for me or what is going to work for you in specific, depending on what stage of recovery you're at. And that's one of the reasons it can be so helpful to have a coach. But regardless of coach or not, you need different things at different times and need to be able to adapt to those things. So there's no one, this is exactly what you need. Just like you couldn't just say, yep, just respond well, you'll get it. That looks different depending on the situation.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Let's go to Yuval. How about that? We got one from Yuval. Hey,
Nice.
currently struggling with heat intolerance. Summer has already started where I am. Has summer started here for us, Ariel?
It technically has, I think so. I know where I'm at, it's still cool most of the time, but it has
Really?
started.
Man, it's 91 degrees where I
Yeah,
live.
today it is, I think, 60, but it's been like yes, here in Michigan in the US, it is like it's crazy. Like we have all seasons throughout the day, but I know yesterday was 75, which is high for us. But just
Mm,
last week we had a day where we were in the 20s. So
that's black and white if I've
Michigan's
ever seen it.
yeah, Michigan's confused, you guys.
That
If
is
anybody's from, that area, Michigan, Ohio, maybe even New York, you know.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So let's let's keep going with the question then. I'm currently struggling with the heat intolerance. Okay. With the heat intolerance, like we talked about in the last question, right? You want to respond well to your body, maybe having a little bit of struggling or difficulty adapting to this newfound heat, but you don't want to freak out about it. You don't want to overthink about it too much, right? But at the same time, you want to support your physical body by doing things that cool you off. Maybe an ice pack, maybe one of those fans that you can load water in that you um, wearing less layers, not wearing dark colors, which I learned the hard way by living in Florida. Um, breathable things. Something that's really in style this year that's also really helped me cool off is linen clothing. 2025 is the year of linen, right? It helps a lot. It really does. So that's what I would say is respond well, but also at the same time support your physical body, right? Let me see the next part of the question. And I feel like the capacity I've been able to gain is slightly reduced. I'm trying to figure it out. That part I can't answer for you, man. That's vague. Okay, a little bit too vague. I don't have enough details on that part. Okay, so what do you think, Ariel, about this question?
I think something I'd add and I had heat intolerance. I had a lot of issues with, and the weather would change. Any weather changes when the heat would come, hot, hot, cold, cold, it would really affect me. And I'll say one thing that I learned to stop doing was tracking the weather. And this might seem like a little thing, you guys, but I'll tell you what, I had 3 weather apps on my phone, and I don't know.
Three.
3. I had WeatherBug, I had the national weather, and then I had this one that's for Michigan. And I was like, I'm gonna make
Wait,
sure
why
I
did you
know
need three? Did they all like provide something different?
Junior, it's in case one was wrong.
Oh my!
So I would look at the 2. So sometimes they'd say different things. Like one, I'm not kidding you. One would say 70, one would say 67. And I'd be like, what's that third one say? Because that's what I'm going with. And I had all these things in my head of this. These are some of those ideas we just talked about where it was Ariel logic, right? So I'd be like, okay, so if we're under 70 degrees, we're good. If we are under 60 degrees, we're not good. So I'm not making plans if in 2 weeks this particular one that goes out far says that it's going to be under this degree or over this degree. I had these numbers in my head. So needless to say, that is a behavior that I didn't think was that, that was affecting me, but it absolutely did. It's that tracking of that weather, because looking at those things in black and white and saying, wow, it's kind of like heart rate tracking in a way. I have to stay within this number and this number. You don't know what that says to the nervous system? That says I'm in danger and I need your help. So for me, that's something that when it comes to heat intolerance and those things, there can be a lot of tracking and thinking ahead and anticipation that comes with that. And that's what's really important when, your nervous system will give you these thoughts that say, oh, I got to check the weather, or, oh, it's going to be really hot in a couple days. I'm not going to be able to do anything. Wait a minute. Can I do anything about in 2 days if I can do anything? No, I can't. So I need to wait until that day comes, see how I feel, and approach it then. And tell my friends, you know what? I'd love to do that. We'll see how I feel on that day. That's where I'm at.
Wow, I never knew that about you, Ariel.
Yeah, I was a weather tracker for sure. I mean, all my friends would make fun of me for it too. Like my friends, if they had any questions, they'd be like, just ask Ariel about the weather. Or yeah, it was kind of ridiculous.
That's wild, because I had heat intolerance as well, but something I never thought about was actually tracking the weather. You know why? Probably for me, because it's always freaking hot here. That's why I
I
didn't
was
need
gonna
to check
say
the weather.
that.
I knew it was hot.
I'm like, you're in Florida, Junior. It was probably like Groundhog Day for you.
I know. Every day. I don't need to check the weather, because if I open it up, it's gonna say the same degree every day. Hot as
Say,
hell. That's what it
yeah,
said every day, right? I didn't gotta check it. That's the thing. So, wow, learned something new. Good, good, Ariel. Well, I'll tell you what. Hold on. When's my next check-in call? Let me double check really quick. Um, check my calendar. I got one at 2:15. I want like 30 minutes to eat lunch before that as well. So we'll do like one more. How about that? And then we'll wrap it up.
yeah, that sounds good.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Uh, Saku. I hope I said that right. Saku Joman. I'm semi-functional physically. Semi-functional means, Ariel, this person can probably, meet with friends a few times a week, go shopping, run errands, is comfortable doing things around the house, can cook, clean, things like that, semi-functional. Okay. Even reading one page of a book makes me really wired. Should I decrease physical activity to work on cognitive? I really miss being able to learn new stuff. Okay, let me tell you something. The cognitive and physical thing is real, right? But in your instance, you're semi-functional and you can do quite a few things, but reading a single page of a book makes you wired. This is not a cognitive versus physical imbalance here. All right, I'm just going to tell you that right now, right? It's not like you're doing so much that you can't read a single page of a book. This sounds different. This sounds like you have a danger response, like some kind of association, negative association, or a danger association with the act of reading a book. So whether you pull back a little bit on the physical, you're still going to have that danger response to that book. That's the thing, right? So in this specific case, I don't think this is a matter of, let me hold off on the walks and I have more to read. That would make sense if you told me you were doing the majority of the stuff physical throughout the day, and then maybe you can't get past a couple chapters of the book before you start feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Yeah, that would make sense that there's a little bit of imbalance there. But for you to be semi-functional and not be able to read a single page of a book without getting wired specifically, yeah, no. This is not an imbalance of that. You're literally just having a danger response when it comes to reading. So let's let's talk about that a little bit, man. What's the content of what you're reading as well? If you can't even do a single page, number one, stay away from the academics. Stay away from something that uses a lot of focus, requires you to study. Do an easy read with the cognitive. We don't have to get into Captain Underpants territory, but something easy, something lighthearted, something relaxing, right? Fiction, right? Something that you enjoy. You know, uh, something along those lines, and do it in an environment which you enjoy. Take the pressure away from it as well. I talked to somebody recently, not this week, but a couple weeks ago, had the same issue, right? Couldn't read more than a few pages of a book. And every time they tried, they felt immediately anxiety. Come to find out, this person is attempting to go back to reading an academic study book, putting a lot of pressure on themselves because they have a deadline to meet because they have to go back to school by this certain date. So now every time he reads, it's that association with I'm doing this, not because I want to, because I have to, because the pressure's on, all for the wrong reasons. Your brain knows that, it can pick up on that, right? So if you're gonna start, if you're gonna gently incorporate it, make sure you do it in a way that you enjoy it. Do it, read something that's light, something that you like. Um, Maybe listen to a little lo-fi music in the background while you do it, right? Cozy up to your environment as well. Get comfortable while you do it. That's what I would say. This came off as a cognitive versus physical question. This is not a cognitive versus physical issue for you, man. I'll tell you right now, just based on my observation from what you wrote. Okay. Ariel, what do you think?
I totally agree. Those are my thoughts is it seems like there's an association with the reading. And I know that and we Junior, we and the coaches have talked about kind of training at the gym for reading, right? And starting with things that are,
Right.
not as intense, leveling up to that more intense reading if you want to, right? And I know for me, when I started reading, it was magazines, which I hadn't really read before, but it was just kind of like, and not academic magazines, not stuff about, science. It was like garbage magazines about things that I kind of barely care about, but were amusing, and that was a feat for me because I felt like that was unproductive. I was that type of person, right? And that's part of the reason that reading was difficult for me is because I had this high value of being able to read things like things related to science or in specific like psychology and stuff like that. But I had to start with things that were easier for me. And I had to be okay with that starting point. So that's what I would suggest is, like you said, Junior, starting with something that's easy to read. Like you said, it doesn't have to be Captain Underpants. If that's where you want to start, that's fine.
That's where I started.
Yeah, that's totally fine if that's where you want to start, but you don't have to. It can be a magazine. It can be, just a light read. I know for me, where I started with regular reading was a daily reader, just an inspirational kind of here's a little quote for your day. Here's a little bit of wisdom. Think about this, one page, moving on, and that took the pressure right off of me. But yeah, this definitely seems to me like an association with the reading as opposed to a cognitive physical issue, especially at semi-functional.
If you do things that you enjoy, if you do things that are in alignment, your body should help you along, not
Yeah.
make it harder. Your question was a big indicator that that was the case. And guess what, Ariel? He left us a little clue because he just commented. And look what he
Yeah.
said.
Yep.
This makes sense. I can listen to this kind of stuff for hours, but listening to an academic audiobook for 5 minutes is hard. Shocker. You know what I mean? Like it's the nervous system doesn't lie. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. So I knew this was more than a cognitive versus physical question. This was a values question at
Yep.
the end of the day, right? Entertaining something that's within your values and entertaining something that is really not that you feel pressured to do, right? So hope that makes sense. But thank you, Ariel, for chiming in, for all your help. We're gonna go ahead and let you guys go. I'm gonna get a little lunch before my next check-in call. You got anything later today, Ariel, on the sketch? What do you
I
think?
will also be, taking a lunch before my next check-in call. Gonna
Yeah.
go out to eat a little bit later tonight, maybe go for a walk and take it easy.
You getting pizza? You gonna join the
No,
pizza club?
I'm gonna go with my partner to a steakhouse. I'm pretty excited.
Oh, steak. Okay, let me ask you
Yeah.
this before I let you go. How do you like your steaks?
Oh, I feel strongly about this one. I like it between rare and medium rare. I usually veer towards rare.
Dang, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
All
know most
right.
people are medium rare, well done.
I'm a medium well. I'm right in the middle. I'm right in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm just always curious, right? If you like well done, you're wrong. You're just wrong. So
You know
that's
what?
just my opinion on that. So
I lovingly agree. If you like your steak well done, I care about you. I'm here for you. Still have respect for you, but you're wrong.
We're just messing with you guys. We don't,
Yeah, we're just joking. We don't care about how you take your steak. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't care about that. Okay, I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you learned something, right? And if you're going through an adjustment period, as always, you hang in there, you respond well, you keep consistent. More YouTube videos from myself coming on some pretty cool, interesting topics. So keep a lookout for that, as well as some more videos from Miguel too. If you guys are interested in the program, as always, it's a great community, a wonderful community, right? Love the folks in there. You'll see us pretty much almost every single day in the program, whether that's interacting in the in the community or seeing us on the group calls as well. If you're interested in that, there should be a link in the description to join. And if you can't find it there, look at one of our other YouTube videos. The link's probably there in the description too. Okay. You guys take care. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you on the next live stream. And yeah, until next time, you guys have a good rest of the day. Okay. Take care, everybody. You are one mind shift away from living a life full of thriving health, as Miguel always says. Bye, everyone. All right.